When my attorney walked into that Denver kitchen with a $73 million check and legal documents transferring my entire restaurant empire, the look on my daughter's and older son's faces was something I'll remember until my dying day. But my youngest, Daniel, a line cook working doubles in a cramped kitchen, had already given me something money could never buy. He'd sold his late wife's engagement ring to help an old dishwasher he'd known for less than a week. Let me take you back 6 weeks. I built Chen's from a single food truck in San Francisco 37 years ago. Started with $500, a wok, and my grandmother's recipes. By the time I turned 65, I owned 17 fine dining establishments across the country, employed over 400 people, and had a personal net worth that made me uncomfortable. The money was never the point. The food was. The craft was. But somewhere along the way, I needed to know if I'd raised my children to understand that. My wife, Sarah, passed 3 years ago. Cancer. She made me promise, in those final weeks, that I'd make sure our children remembered what mattered. "Robert," she whispered, her hand barely squeezing mine. "Success without character is just noise. Make sure they know the difference." I had 3 children. Victoria, my oldest at 35, ran my flagship restaurant in Manhattan. She'd graduated from the Culinary Institute of America, worked under 3 Michelin-starred chefs in France, and had a reputation for excellence that bordered on ruthless. Her restaurant, Victoria's Table, had 2 Michelin stars and a 6-month waiting list. Michael, 32, managed my Boston location. He'd gone the business route, Harvard MBA, then came back to run operations. His restaurant pulled in $8 million annually. He called me every quarter to discuss profit margins and expansion opportunities, never to ask how I was doing. Then there was Daniel, 28 years old, working as a line cook in Denver at a small bistro that wasn't even mine. He'd dropped out of culinary school after his wife Emma died in a car accident 4 years ago. Depression had hit him hard. I'd offered him a position at any of my restaurants. He'd refused. Said he needed to earn his own way, not ride on his father's name. I hadn't heard from him in 8 months. The test started on a Monday morning in October. I spent 2 weeks preparing. Let my hair grow out gray and shaggy. Grew a beard. Bought secondhand clothes from a thrift store in Oakland, the kind that smelled like mothballs in someone else's life. I had my attorney, James Morrison, set up everything. New identity documents. Carlos Martinez, 68, no fixed address, looking for dishwashing work. First stop was Manhattan. Victoria's Table occupied a corner brownstone in the West Village. I walked up to the service entrance at 2 p.m., right between lunch and dinner service. The kitchen was stainless steel and pristine. The kind of place where a single fingerprint felt like a crime. I knocked. A young sous chef opened the door. "Help you?" he asked. Not unkindly. "I'm looking for work," I said, making my voice rougher than usual. "Dishwashing, prep, anything. I can work hard." He looked me up and down. "Wait here." 5 minutes later, Victoria appeared. My daughter. She wore chef's whites so crisp they could cut glass. Her hair pulled back tight. She looked at me the way you'd look at a stain. "We're not hiring," she said immediately. "Ma'am, I don't need much. Minimum wage is fine. I'm good with my hands. I'm reliable." I said, "We're not hiring." Her voice was cold. "Professional. We have staffing agencies we work with. You can try applying through them. But I'll be honest. We require background checks, references, work authorization. I have authorization. I just need a chance. This is a Michelin-starred establishment. We can't take chances on walk-ins." She started closing the door. "Try one of the chain restaurants. They're always hiring." The door clicked shut. Through the small window, I watched her walk back into the kitchen, pulling out her phone, already moving on to the next thing. She didn't look back once. I stood there for a moment. The October wind cut through my thin jacket. I'd given her everything. Private school, culinary institute, seed money for her first restaurant. She'd just closed the door on a stranger, asking for minimum wage work without a second thought. I took the train to Boston that evening. Michael's restaurant, The Vault, operated out of a converted bank building in the financial district. All marble and gold leaf, the kind of place where tech executives expensed $1,000 dinners. I went to the back entrance at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, before service started. The back door was propped open. I could hear voices inside, someone yelling about a delivery. I walked in. "Hey, you can't be back here." A young cook spotted me immediately. "I'm looking for work," I said. "I can wash dishes, clean, whatever you need." "Dude, you need to leave. This is a secure area." Michael appeared from around the corner. My son. He'd inherited my height but none of my warmth. Everything about him was angles and efficiency. "What's going on?" he asked the cook. "This guy just walked in. Says he's looking for work." Michael turned to me. His eyes were his mother's eyes, but there was no recognition. Just calculation. "This is private property. You need to leave." "Sir, I'm just asking for a chance. I'm a hard worker. I don't need much." "Just enough to." He pulled out his wallet. I watched him count out bills. $75. "Here," he said, holding it out. "There's a labor ready 2 blocks north on Atlantic. They do day labor placement. Use this for the registration fee or whatever you need. But you can't be here. It's a liability issue." I didn't take the money. I don't want charity. I want to work. And I don't want a lawsuit when you slip on a wet floor, and I don't have you on payroll. He set the money on a prep table. "Take it or don't. But you need to leave now, or I'm calling security." The young cook was already on his phone. Michael watched me with the same expression you'd use for a raccoon in your garbage. Not angry, just inconvenienced. I left the money on the table and walked out. 2 sons. Both successful. Both turned me away. Victoria with cold professionalism. Michael with $75 and a warning. I took a bus to Denver. It took 19 hours. I slept in seats that smelled like chemical cleaner and watched America roll past the window. Somewhere in Nebraska, an older woman offered me half her sandwich. I almost cried. Daniel's bistro was called The Provisions. It sat in a neighborhood called Highland, wedged between a yoga studio and a craft brewery. Nothing fancy. Exposed brick, mismatched chairs, menu written on a chalkboard. The kind of place that focused on food, not Instagram. I waited until Thursday morning. Walked in through the back alley at 6 a.m. When I knew prep would be starting, the door was unlocked. Inside, I could hear the sound of a knife on a cutting board, quick and rhythmic. The kitchen was small, maybe a quarter the size of Victoria's, but it was alive. Music played softly from a speaker. Someone had taped up photos of staff on the wall, grinning at the camera. I found Daniel at the prep station, breaking down a whole chicken. He'd gotten thinner since I'd last seen him. His wedding ring still hung on a chain around his neck. "Morning," he said, looking up. No suspicion, just acknowledgement. "Morning," I replied. "I'm looking for work. Dishwashing, prep, whatever you've got." He set down his knife, wiped his hands on his apron. "We're pretty small here. I don't know if the owner's hiring." Then he paused, really looking at me. "You eaten breakfast?" The question caught me off guard. "No." Hold on." He moved to the stove, turned on a burner, pulled eggs from the walk-in, butter, a heel of sourdough bread. His hands moved with the economy of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. "You don't have to. Sit," he said, pointing to a stool by the prep table. "Can't think on an empty stomach." I sat. He scrambled the eggs in butter, slow and low, added fresh chives and a pinch of salt at the end, toasted the bread until it was golden, spread it with more butter, set the plate in front of me with a fork. "Eat," he said. "Then we'll figure out the work thing." The eggs were perfect. Soft, creamy, rich. The bread was still warm. I couldn't remember the last time someone had cooked for me without it being a performance or an obligation. This was just care. Simple and direct. "Thank you," I said quietly. "No problem." He went back to his chicken. "I'm Daniel, by the way. Line cook, prep, whatever needs doing." "Carlos," I said. The lie felt heavy. "Nice to meet you, Carlos." He didn't ask my story. Didn't ask why I was looking for work or where I'd come from. Just let me eat in peace. The owner arrived at 7:30. A woman named Sophie, maybe 40, with kind eyes and flour on her jeans. Daniel talked to her in the office for 5 minutes. When they came back out, she extended her hand. Daniel says you're looking for work. Can't pay much, and we're pretty small. But if you want to wash dishes and help with prep, I can offer $9.50 an hour. Under the table, cash every Friday, $9.50 an hour. Below minimum wage. Under the table. I'll take it, I said. Great. You can start Monday. Daniel will show you the ropes. That's how I became a dishwasher in my son's kitchen. The first week was humbling. My hands weren't used to the constant water and soap. My back ached from bending over the sink. The spray nozzle had a leak that soaked my shirt every time I used it. I worked 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 6 days a week, $57 a day. Daniel never treated me differently than anyone else on the line. He showed me where things went, how Sophie liked the prep station organized, which pans needed to be hand-washed versus machine. He shared his shift meal with me every day. Half a sandwich, a cup of soup, whatever they were testing for the menu. On the third day, I noticed the photos on the wall. One of them showed a young woman with dark hair and Daniel's same smile. She was laughing, flour in her hair. That's your wife? I asked during a break. Daniel looked at the photo for a long moment. Yeah, Emma. She passed 4 years ago. I'm sorry. Thanks. He touched the ring on his chain. She loved to bake, was going to open a pastry shop. We had the lease signed and everything. He turned back to his prep. Anyway, that's why I'm here instead of some fancy place. This feels more real, you know? I knew. By the second week, I'd learned the rhythm of the kitchen. Morning prep, lunch rush, afternoon breakdown. Daniel worked like his mother used to cook, with complete presence. No phone in his pocket, no shortcuts. When he made stock, he roasted the bones first. When he prepped vegetables, every cut was intentional. One Thursday afternoon, Sophie pulled me aside. Carlos, I need to cut your hours next week. Business has been slow, and I'm trying not to let anyone go, but I can't afford full-time for everyone. I understand, I said. Daniel overheard. That evening, as we were breaking down the kitchen, he approached me. Hey, you got a place to stay? I'd been sleeping in a room at a cheap motel on Colfax. $8 a night. Shared bathroom. I'm managing. That's not what I asked. He dried his hands. Look, I've got a spare room. It's small, but it's warm and it's free. You can stay there until things pick up again. No strings. Daniel, I can't. Yes, you can. He started putting away his knives. I know what it's like to have nothing. After Emma died, I was sleeping in my car for 3 months. Someone helped me out. This is me passing it on. That night, I followed him to a small duplex in Berkeley. The spare room had a twin bed, a lamp, and a window that overlooked a backyard where someone was trying to grow tomatoes. The sheets were clean. There was a towel folded on the pillow. Bathrooms down the hall, Daniel said. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. I usually eat late, after shift, but there's leftovers in the fridge. I set down my backpack, which contained everything I owned in this identity. Why are you doing this? He leaned against the doorframe. My dad used to say that how you treat people when they have nothing tells you everything about your character. He smiled, sad. We haven't talked in a while, but that one stuck with me. Get some rest, Carlos. He left the door open a crack. I sat on the bed and put my face in my hands. The third week, I met his friends, other cooks and servers from around the neighborhood. They gathered at Daniel's place every Sunday evening, bringing ingredients, cooking together. It was loud and chaotic and beautiful. They treated me like I belonged there. On the fourth week, everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning. I came into the kitchen early and found Daniel sitting on the floor by the walk-in, his head in his hands. The ring on his chain was gone. Daniel? I sat down beside him. He looked up. His eyes were red. I sold it. Emma's ring. His voice cracked. The bistro's behind on rent. Sophie's been covering payroll out of her savings. I found out yesterday she's about to lose this place. So I took Emma's ring to a pawn shop on 6th Avenue and got $4,000, gave it all to Sophie. My chest felt tight. Your wife's ring. She'd want me to do it. He wiped his eyes roughly. This place gave me a reason to keep going when I wanted to quit everything. These people, they're family. Sophie doesn't know yet. I told her but you should know. In case something happens and I need someone to understand why I did it. I couldn't speak. The thing is, he continued, I keep thinking about what my mom used to tell me. She said the people who have the least often give the most, because they remember what it feels like to need help. I've got almost nothing, Carlos. But what I've got, I can share. That has to mean something, right? I put my hand on his shoulder. This boy, this man, my son, had sold the last piece of his wife to save a small bistro and the people who worked there, including a dishwasher he'd known for less than a month. It means everything, I said. That afternoon, I called James Morrison. I'm done, I told him. Set up the meeting for this weekend. Saturday morning, 10 a.m., at the bistro. All 3 children? All 3. Saturday arrived cold and clear. I got to the bistro at 9 a.m. Daniel was already there, prepping for a private event. Sophie had given us the space for the morning, a family meeting I'd asked to arrange through James. At 9:45, Victoria arrived in a town car. She looked around the small dining room with barely concealed disdain. Michael showed up 5 minutes later, already on his phone. What is this about? Victoria asked. Your attorney said it was urgent. Daniel came out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. He froze when he saw them. Victoria? Michael? What are you doing here? We could ask you the same thing, Michael said. Though I suppose I shouldn't be surprised you're working in a place like this. James Morrison walked in at exactly 10 a.m., carrying his briefcase. He nodded to me. I stood up from the corner table where I'd been sitting, walked to the center of the room. Victoria and Michael barely glanced at me. Daniel's eyes widened. Carlos? He said. I pulled off the beanie I'd been wearing, ran a hand through my hair. Not Carlos. Victoria's face went white. Michael's mouth opened. Dad? Victoria whispered. Hello, Victoria. Michael. I turned to Daniel, whose expression had gone from confusion to understanding. Daniel. The silence was deafening. What the hell is this? Michael found his voice first. Some kind of test? Yes, I said simply. I needed to know who my children really were. Not the resumes, or the profit margins, or the Michelin stars. Who you were when someone needed help, and couldn't offer you anything in return. Victoria's hands were shaking. You pretended to be homeless. I pretended to be exactly what I was, someone who needed work. I came to each of you, asked for the same thing, a chance to wash dishes for minimum wage. This is insane, Michael said. You set us up. I gave you an opportunity. I cut him off. Victoria, you shut the door in my face in less than 30 seconds. Didn't even let me finish my sentence. Michael, you gave me $75 and threatened to call security. You both looked at someone asking for help and saw a liability, an inconvenience, a problem to be managed. We run businesses. Victoria's voice was rising. We have protocols, insurance, legal requirements. Daniel runs a kitchen too, I said quietly. And when I walked in asking for work, he made me breakfast, gave me a job, invited me into his home, sold his wife's wedding ring to save the restaurant where I worked. I looked at my youngest son, who hadn't said a word, without knowing who I was, without expecting anything in return. Daniel's face was unreadable. James Morrison opened his briefcase. I have documents here that need to be signed. Mr. Chen has made some decisions regarding the future of Chen's restaurant group. He handed papers to each of them. Victoria and Michael grabbed theirs immediately, scanning the text. Daniel just held his, not looking down. What is this? Victoria asked, her voice sharp. I'm stepping down, I said. The company needs new leadership. I'm transferring ownership and control of all 17 restaurants, valued at approximately $73 million, to Daniel. The papers fell from Victoria's hands. Michael's face went red. You can't be serious, Michael said. He's a line cook. He dropped out of culinary school. He's been working in this. He gestured around the small bistro. Dive for 4 years. He's the only one of you who remembered what I taught you, I said. That food is service. That restaurants are built on the backs of people who show up every day. That how you treat the dishwasher matters as much as how you treat the critic. You two forgot that. If you ever knew it at all. So, that's it? Victoria's eyes were bright with tears, though I couldn't tell if they were from sadness or rage. You cut us out completely because we didn't hire some random man off the street? I'm giving you both severance packages. $2 million each. It's in the documents. You'll have to find new positions. But with your resumes, that won't be difficult. This is because of him. Michael pointed at Daniel. He probably knew the whole time. Played you. I didn't know, Daniel said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken. He looked at me, and his eyes were full of hurt. I had no idea. I know you didn't, I said. That's the point, son. He set the papers down on the table. I don't want it. Now it was my turn to be surprised. Daniel, I don't want your empire, Dad. I don't want 17 restaurants. I wanted my father. I wanted you to call me back when I left messages. I wanted you to show up when Emma died instead of sending flowers. I wanted you to see me as more than the son who failed. His voice was steady, but tears ran down his face. You want to give me $73 million? I'd trade it all for you to have just visited once in the last 8 months, to have eaten dinner with me, to have asked how I was doing. The words hit me like a physical blow. You taught me to care about people, he continued. So I did. I fed you because you were hungry. I gave you a place to stay because you needed one. I sold Emma's ring because people I love were in trouble. I didn't do it for a reward. I did it because it was right. And now you're here, offering me money as if that's what any of this was about. He walked to the door, then paused. Victoria and Michael are right about one thing. They run their lives like businesses because that's what you showed them. You built an empire and called it success. You made money and called it achievement. And when Mom was dying, you were at the flagship restaurant in San Francisco because Wednesday was test kitchen day and you never missed test kitchen day. Daniel, please, I started. I helped you because you're a person who needed help, not because you're my father, not for the inheritance, just because. He opened the door. Cold air rushed in. Give the restaurants to whoever you want. I'm going to finish my shift. He left. Victoria and Michael stood frozen. James Morrison quietly repacked his briefcase. I stood in the middle of that small dining room, surrounded by mismatched chairs and the smell of Daniel's morning prep, and realized I'd gotten everything wrong. I'd tested my children's compassion, but I'd failed the more important test, being a father worth having compassion for. Before we continue, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from? What would you do in this moment? I followed Daniel back into the kitchen. He was at his station, knife in hand, working on mirepoix with fierce concentration. I'm sorry, I said. He didn't stop cutting. For which part? All of it. You're right. I built restaurants and forgot to build relationships. I was at the test kitchen when your mother died because I was afraid. Afraid of losing her. Afraid of feeling helpless. So I went somewhere. I had control. The words came hard, and I've been doing that ever since. Testing you 3, because I couldn't face having a real conversation. The knife paused. Why now? Why did you finally decide to check on us? Your mother made me promise. To make sure you all knew what mattered. But I went about it the wrong way. I thought I could evaluate you from a distance, like I was judging a dish. I forgot that family isn't something you test. It's something you show up for. Daniel set down the knife, turned to face me. I'm angry at you. I know. I'm angry that you disappeared. I'm angry that you let Victoria and Michael turn into people Mom wouldn't recognize. I'm angry that it took you pretending to be someone else to finally spend time with me. I know, but I also understand why you did it. He leaned against the prep table. You wanted to know if your children would help a stranger. The answer is 1 out of 3. I don't know if that's a success or a failure. It's a failure, I said. Mine, not yours. We stood there in silence. Outside, I could hear Victoria and Michael's voices, raised in argument. I meant what I said, Daniel continued. I don't want the empire, but I do want my father back, the one who used to let me stand on a step stool and help him cook on Sunday mornings. The one who taught me that food is love made visible. That man, I'd like to spend time with. My throat was tight. He's been here all along, just buried under a lot of stupid decisions. Daniel smiled slightly. Then help me dig him out. I'd like that. He handed me an apron. Sophie's got a catering order for 40 people tonight. We're short-staffed. You any good at chopping vegetables? I used to be. Good. Because Carlos was kind of slow. I laughed. Actually laughed. Took the apron and tied it on. We worked side by side for the next 6 hours. I chopped vegetables. He broke down proteins. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. The kitchen had its own language, and we both spoke it fluently. At one point, Sophie came back. Carlos, you're... Wait, she looked between us. Oh my God, you're related? Father and son, Daniel said. Long story. Does this mean I have to give back the $4,000? She asked, half joking. Keep it, I said. Consider it an investment. In fact, I wiped my hands on my apron. How would you feel about a partner? Someone with capital and experience who wants to help this place grow, but keep its soul intact? Sophie's eyes went wide. Is this, I'm serious. Daniel can explain the details later. But yes, if you're interested. She looked at Daniel. He nodded. It's a good offer, Sophie. And he knows what he's doing. Then yes, she said. Absolutely yes. Oh my God. I need to sit down. She went back into the office. Daniel smiled. You just bought into a struggling bistro when you own 17 successful restaurants. Correction. I just became a partner in the only restaurant where my son works. Seems like a good investment to me. That evening, after service, I called Victoria and Michael, asked them to meet me at my hotel the next morning. They came, stiff and formal. I gave them the truth, not a test, just honesty. I failed you both as a father. I taught you that success was everything, that image mattered more than integrity. I rewarded you for profit and punished you for vulnerability. So when I showed up asking for help, you responded exactly as I'd trained you to, by optimizing, by managing risk, by protecting the brand. Victoria's jaw was tight. So, this is our fault? No. It's mine. But it's also your responsibility now to decide who you want to be going forward. The offer stands. $2 million each. You'll leave Chen's, but you'll have capital to start fresh. Build something that reflects who you actually are, not who I pressured you to become. Michael spoke up. And if we refuse, then you get nothing. But I don't think you will refuse. I think you're both too smart for that. They signed the papers that afternoon. We didn't hug, didn't make promises about staying in touch. Maybe someday, maybe never. That was up to them. Daniel's inheritance got restructured. Not 17 restaurants, just a partnership in the provisions and a trust fund that would kick in when he turned 35. $5 million. Enough to build something meaningful. Not enough to coast. The other 16 restaurants? I sold them. Over the next 6 months. Split the money between a culinary education foundation in Sarah's name and 3 charities focused on food insecurity and workforce development. Kept enough to live comfortably and invest in Sophie's Bistro. I'm 73 now. I work 4 days a week at the Provisions, doing prep and washing dishes. Daniel runs the kitchen. Sophie handles the business. We've opened a second location. Nothing fancy, just good food and fair wages, and a staff that eats family meal together every day. Victoria emails occasionally. Short updates. She opened a small restaurant in Portland. Seats 30. She says it's teaching her things she never learned in France. Michael and I don't speak. Daniel and I cook together every Sunday morning, just like we used to when he was small. His daughter, Emma, born 6 months after the test, now stands on a step stool and helps us prep vegetables. She's 3 years old and already knows that food is love made visible. I've learned that the true measure of wealth isn't in what you accumulate, but in what you're willing to give to someone who can never repay you. My son taught me that. The son I almost overlooked because he didn't fit my definition of success. He sold his wife's ring to save a restaurant. I sold my empire to save my soul. In the end, we both got what we needed. Not what we thought we wanted, but what we actually needed. And every morning, when I tie on my apron and step into that small kitchen in Denver, I think about my wife's last words. Make sure they know what matters. I'm trying, Sarah. I'm finally trying.